On tonight's episode, the path to becoming a professional angler and fears on the water.
This is going to be a good one.
Alright guys, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Fish. A little delay on the intro there. Jeff was trying to play jokes on me because he usually gives me like a hand signal or something to let everybody
We're making a live
He was nodding
blooper
his
reel.
head, and you were just not paying attention.
So there might have been a little corny delay, like a 2 or 3 second. Nodding his head. No, he usually gives me like a fist bump or something like that.
He did this. And
I was getting ready to
said
I was getting ready to bring in the bass line.
He's playing on the intro music.
We got popcorn. We got Thrift.
Sour Patch
Thrift
Kids.
knows me well. We have Sour Patch Kids. He went to Dairy Queen tonight for
no
his son.
blizzards for Matt and Jeff tonight.
Yeah, his son Lyle. He said he was going to bring Jeff and I blizzards. We made him feel bad, but he did swing by the store, got himself his favorite drink, Sundrop,
Right there.
which is also known around Shelby as a nectar of the gods. And my favorite, Sour Patch Kids.
And
Anybody
I
that
did.
knows me knows that's my favorite.
And Jeff made a delicious bowl
I'm
of
sorry.
popcorn.
Yeah,
I
Jeff-
did
Jeff
show
made
up
some
with
popcorn.
unannounced popcorn, which
That's
is
right.
a bonus.
And it's good popcorn. It's not the
That is good popcorn.
popcorn
You can't
without
get
flavor.
anything bad from Ingles.
I agree.
Okay, from Ingles.
That's Ingles popcorn.
Ingles
impressive.
brand.
Ingles
That's
donuts,
a
Laura
grocery
Lynn.
store.
Ingles cookies, Ingles whatever.
Hey, they got good guacamole too.
They got good everything.
All right, enough about food. We got to talk fish. All right, guys, tonight
Talk food too.
we are going to talk about our fears on the water. Brian, myself, anybody wants to join in, talk about anything that they're scared of on the water. And we're going to talk about the path to becoming a professional angler. We get questions all the time. How do you become a professional angler?
Yes.
It's something I want to do, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. First, we'll talk about fears on the water. Brian,
I think that leads into after the next one, but we can start with that.
okay, well, we'll do it either way you want to.
It don't matter to me. We can go. We
Whoever
can
wrote
go,
this-
we can go out there and
Idea down.
we'll put the fears out at the beginning of
bring
the
Sour
show.
Patch
All right.
Kids,
If
you
we
can
don't
go
put the
first.
fears out first, people can't make fun of us on the comments.
That's a good
So
point. They got
we're
more
going to
time
go with the
pick on.
fears first.
All right, Brian, I'm going to let you start
Who
talking
wants
about
to?
fears.
I got to volunteer for the first fear.
Yeah, you got to volunteer.
Is this like a legit fear or like
Well, we know you're scared of spiders.
that's my number one fear?
Anybody that watched, was it last week's show or the show before
The
that?
spider it came dangling down from the
That wasn't
ceiling.
even a spider.
Yeah,
That
it
was a spider.
That was like a speck of pepper with legs.
No, those are the most
It
dangerous.
took me a long time.
You know what they
Because
say
you can't
about
see
snakes? The little ones are the most dangerous. Same with
You
spiders.
can't see them. I don't like anything I can't see.
Okay, so we know you hate spiders.
Don't like spiders.
All right, what else are your fears on the water? What do you worry about when you're out there fishing?
My biggest fear in a tournament situation is letting my fans down. My family, my fans that are pulling for you, expect you to do well. Like, that's my biggest fear. I mean, I want to go out there and perform for everybody that's cheering me on. That's hands down my biggest fear. That and spiders.
Yeah, I have to agree with Brian on that. You know, I don't have a fear of rough water. I grew up doing a
Yeah, I
lot of
don't really
saltwater
either.
fishing.
Because that's under your control. I mean, anything that's under my personal control,
to an
I
extent.
feel like I've kind of got to
Well, you
grab.
can drive the boat, but then Mother Nature sometimes.
Right, but you don't have to.
Well, that's true. But if you're out, what I was getting ready to touch on is if you're out in the middle of Lake Erie, or Lake Michigan, or one of the Great Lakes, or the middle of Lake Okeechobee,
Or
for
the
that
ocean.
matter.
Or Santee.
Well, we don't. There's not bass. Let's tell this guy. There's no bass in the ocean. We don't actually have
Hey,
bass tournaments in the ocean.
I start in the ocean and work in.
Okay. Eventually, you run into them, right? So yeah, I mean, storms and rough water can be a small concern. It's not really a fear of mine. I hate snakes.
Yes.
I mean, I've had them. In
I'm
the
good
boat.
with a snake.
I've had them in the splash well. I've had them everywhere but on me, basically, in the boat. And I've had some encounters with some wasps. And I don't know if anybody saw the classic, the Bassmaster Classic.
I don't like wasps.
Yeah,
Hornets.
well,
anything that flies, stings. I don't like it.
Sometimes
I'm with you on that.
Skipping overhang trees and undercut banks that have overhangs, and I have been up under overhangs before and been attacked by wasps.
Ooh, that's not a good feeling.
I was fortunate enough to only get stung one time, but that, I'd say bees, wasps, you know, when you're dealing with getting unhung, and yes, pros get hung, we get hung a lot.
Yeah,
a
lot.
And snakes. You know, we've been places like down in Louisiana, like Red
River.
Yeah,
Red River is bad.
Places like that.
I've got a good story about a snake. Let me stop you. All right, Andy Montgomery was on the show a couple weeks ago. Me and Andy fished a lot of team tournaments back in the day. We're at Lake Wiley fishing this team tournament, and it's like one of the best docks on the lake. This was 15 years ago when fish on Wiley would actually bite a jig on a dock. They don't do that anymore. But back then it was good. So we pull up to our favorite dock on the lake, and there's this snake sitting up on it. I ain't lying, he's like this big around. I don't know if it's a big water snake or what it was. But anyway, this big snake's perched up on this dock. Andy won't even fish it. Like, we pull up, and he trolls away from it, and we go somewhere else.
What does he think was going to happen?
He's scared to death of snakes.
You know there was like a 7-pounder under that dock.
Probably.
So snakes, spiders. David Fields said spiders are the devil.
Hey, I'm with you on that.
Devin Jones said sandbars. You know, that is definitely a fear. We do, and that's a good point, Devin. We run into a lot of places we probably should never take a boat into, or even attempt to get a boat.
That's probably my second biggest fear.
Getting stuck.
When it comes, not really getting stuck, but say I've got a big bag or a good limit of fish, and I know, I've got 10 grand riding in the live well.
I'm not making it back.
Like, I'm not really scared of it, but it's always in the back of your mind. Like, I always want to leave early and fish around the boat ramp for like 10 or 15 minutes just because I'm like, man, I know I've got 10 grand in the live well. I got to make sure I'm in.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we do. When we know we have money in the box,
yeah.
I mean, our livelihood depends on it.
Oh, yeah.
If we got 60 or 70 miles to go, which a lot of places we fish, we have a long run to get back to takeoff. And I'm like, Brian, I know I'm going to take chances.
I'm not going to take a chance.
I'll leave plenty.
Because you never know what's going to happen making a long run. There might be a floating log you don't see.
Yeah.
Something like you spin a hub on your prop, you hit something like that. And, if it takes you, changing the prop's not that hard, but if it eats up 15 minutes of time, you're 10 minutes late, that's bad.
Yeah, you got to allow for that. So, all right, so fears, we know fears, and the sandbars are a great one. Shoals that aren't marked, things like that. All the
especially on like a river system where it's always changing. Like, I know they talked about that when we were up at what was that river, Mississippi River?
Yeah,
they talked about how the current will move the sandbars and change them around.
That's kind
of a scary deal.
Yeah, where a sandbar one year could be
that
20 yards or
and then gone.
Something from where it was a year.
Y'all never hit oyster bars either, right?
We don't hit oyster bars.
I've never hit an oyster bar.
Not that we're aware of.
I fell in one time. This is a good story. I was at the beach now, Oak Island. And I'm like 10 years old. I'm down at the Intercoastal Waterway fishing by myself. This is back in the 80s when you could do that. You could go by yourself. So I'm out there 10 years old by myself, barefooted, fishing off the seawall. And I'm standing in the middle of a fire ant nest. And by the time I realize it, there's like 1,000 on my legs, like up to my kneecap. So I'm like, water, bail off this seawall into the waterway here. Landed on an oyster bar.
Jumped from a fire
ants to the oyster bar. Like, it filleted the heel on my left foot. Like you could just flop it back.
Not good.
No, so I come limping back to the house, leaving a blood trail. It was like 300 yards from the waterway to the house, and Grandma was flipping out.
And then a spider jumped on you, and it was over.
No spiders involved. Fire ants are the next worst thing to spiders, though.
All right, so let's get into talking about the path to becoming a professional angler. We get this question all the time.
Yeah.
I know Brian does. Everywhere we drive, there's always, whether it's a young kid or even some adults that come up to us and say, how do you become a professional fisherman?
Yep.
And there's a lot of different ways to do it now, today, than there was. There's even more ways now than there was when
I think
started.
it's probably easier now with the social media platforms and the high school fishing, the college fishing. There's a lot more opportunities, and the learning curve is a lot shorter than it was when we started. We started back in 2007. It's only been 10 years, but things have progressed exponentially since 2010. It just the amount of information and the different avenues you have to be a professional now.
Yeah, absolutely. The opportunities now are endless. I mean,
Starting with what we're doing right here.
Yeah,
you couldn't do this 10 years ago.
No, exactly.
You can't go to YouTube. You can't Google it.
Right.
Yeah, so,
I mean,
this is a pathway for some of the younger anglers to learn from Brian and myself on the mistakes we've made and the things we've learned through the experiences we've had. And, you know, I graduated from NC State in 2003.
We won't hold that against you.
And the NC State that, yeah, we won. Okay, cool. I didn't know that.
We're 2-1. We have a winning record right now. So,
but you lost to South Carolina, who's horrible.
Well,
they're not that bad.
Lacrosse.
Are you kidding?
Anyway, back to what I was saying. I graduated in 2003, and that was a 5-year plan. That wasn't a 4-year plan.
Me too.
I should have gone a 6-year plan because they started their fishing team in 2004. Since then, that club has grown amazingly. They have a huge club. They have tons of members, a lot of support, and they've won a couple national championships. You got a bunch of SEC schools, Auburn. You got schools now giving scholarships for kids to fish. And so the opportunities there are a lot better than they were when we started. Now, Brian and I started very similar. Back when we were 15, 16, 17 years old, we both fished in local clubs to get our feet wet.
That's
and those opportunities
like
are
a
still
federation-type club, you know, with the TBF, that type deal.
Right.
And that's still a great avenue. I mean, there's a ton of guys come up. I mean, look at Joseph Webster, Jeremy Lawyer, all the guys that have came up through the TVF, won the Living the Dream package, and now they're full-time pros.
Yeah, and most of those guys are about our age. I think most of them are in their mid to late 30s, some of them early 40s maybe.
Yeah.
So that avenue's still there. But the avenue with the high school fishing, if you're a young, aspiring angler, get involved in your school programs. Get one started if you don't have one started. That being said, we took the club approach. From there, we fished local team tournaments all over the map.
And BFLs and stuff like that.
FLW
just kind of the stepping stones.
Yeah, FLW has a great organization for different levels to work your way up through the ranks. That's what both of us did. We fished BFLs, we fished Costas, and now we fish FLW Tour. Your BFLs I would consider kind of your single A.
Kind of your local regional, but but I mean, you've
really
got
good fishermen in the
BFLs. That's some of the hardest tournaments to win because I mean, to me, you're competing against the best locals
absolutely
in your area.
Events.
Yeah, and it's a one-day event.
And then the Costas, I think, are the best AAA circuit out there. That is one step underneath the tour. The payouts are great. And that's where you really get to test your skills on a variety of lakes. You get a little bit more spread out. And I think that makes you more of a versatile angler, which is an extremely important ingredient in becoming a professional. Especially
in that making that next step to the tour level, because when you're talking about the difference between BFLs and the Costa Series, you're going from a one-day event to a 3-day event. And that's a big step because the practice for those type of events are totally different. I mean, it's a lot different in practicing for a one-day event versus a 3-day event. I mean, finding something that'll hold up for one day versus finding a pattern that holds up for 3 days. So you learn a lot just by fishing that type of event like the Costa Series because it forces you to practice different and it's just a higher level of fishing.
Well, yeah, and when you're fishing for multiple day events, and we've touched on this a couple weeks ago, that you have to find patterns within patterns.
Yeah.
You have to find A plans, B plans, C plans, D plans, and so on and so forth. You can never find too many fish. We've learned that. You can never find too many fish. You can never find too many patterns. And the more you find, the better off you are because conditions change every hour and every day.
Exactly.
And
fishing pressure changes fish. That's what a lot of people don't think about. Fishing pressure will change fish big time. Especially when you talk about a practice for a multiple day tournament where you've got 250 anglers practicing for 3 or 4 days. That changes fish big time.
Yeah, and back to becoming a professional, Brian's probably like me. We both, I mean, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, I was that weird kid that all the other kids got up on Saturday morning and they went out like playing outside. And I played sports. I mean, no, I played soccer and baseball, but don't get me wrong, I didn't know.
You still have an aspiring volleyball career.
That's right, I do. I still play volleyball. I enjoy volleyball. Much as y'all make fun of it, that's
I don't make fun of it. I don't know.
I think he's doing something else. I think he just tells his wife he's playing volleyball.
Yeah.
I think it's like poker night.
You like getting dressed in Speedos and going playing sand? Going playing beach volleyball,
that's
more power to you.
Shirtless with a Speedo, barefooted with a bunch of dudes in the sand.
Well, back what I was saying, That some
Why
of
you
those guys
turning-
might be watching. They're pretty big fellas.
Why are
too,
you
so-
turning red, man?
Because you keep picking on me, man. You're always singling me out. I need a Sour Patch Kid.
Eat a Sour.
Exactly.
Brian has picked out
I've ate all
the colors.
all the blue
You
Sour
can see, but
Patch.
there's nothing but green left in here.
Volleyball,
Nobody likes green.
There's got to be at least
Sour
one red
Patch,
one.
and volleyball goes hand in hand.
So I was a kid that got up and always watched Bassmasters, Hank Parker, Jimmy
Yeah.
Houston, Roland Martin,
Orlando Wilson.
Orlando Wilson.
That was the good
That was a
one.
good one. And whatever happened to Orlando
I
Wilson?
don't know. That was a good show.
Yeah, it was.
a good show.
I remember. Can you remember the theme song?
I can still hear it. That's what I was sitting here trying
Would you
to
sing
think
it for
of.
us?
I don't know if I can remember. It's something about going fishing with Orlando Wilson today. Something like that.
Something like that.
That's
Yeah,
right.
something like
I got
that.
it.
So
I guess the key to it is whatever you're trying to be professional in. Obviously, it's fishing. You need to fish. Whatever platform
you
you
gotta
can
put
get
your
to,
time.
you got to put the time and you got to fish. That's across the board. Whether it's
Yeah.
fishing and business, whatever you want, you
Yeah.
gotta do it.
Yeah,
And you gotta get yourself
you
out
gotta
there.
take
Put
the
yourself
risk.
out
I mean,
there.
it's definitely a risk, but it's worth the reward if
It's-
you put your time into it.
it's going to come to a point if you're pursuing a career full time in fishing, and you can fish the coasters and the BFLs and keep a full time job, but it's going to come to a point to where unless you have your own business,
Yeah.
you got somebody that you can trust, obviously, to run that business while you're gone. But you still can't. It's still hard to fish with a clear head.
Right,
I mean, I've
it
seen
is.
that happen 1,000 times out here on tour. Guys that have successful businesses back home and do very well. But it's hard to fish with a clear mind when you're trying to run a business too. So it's going to come. You're going to have to choose. I mean, if
Which
you want
could
to
be somebody's fear on the water.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a good point because the biggest fear is not being able to fish with a clear mind because you're competing against a lot of guys that are really, really good that have
And are really focused.
and very focused, and they live and breathe it, and that's all they do. And that's hard to compete against that type of guy. So, all right. That being said, it pretty much kind of maps out our path. I mean, I lived and breathed it since I was 5. I remember telling my guidance counselor in kindergarten, or maybe it's first grade, regardless, she asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. You probably the same way.
Oh, yeah.
And I said a professional bass fisherman. And I remember, like it was yesterday, she looked at me like I was crazy. She didn't really say anything negative. I don't think she could.
No, I think morally she can't.
Right. But she did look at me like I was crazy. And
I would have too.
what's that?
I would have too.
And back then,
back
back then it was a very, very elite group
Right.
that was doing it
Exactly.
professionally. But okay, so that being said, we
Spider's back.
your spider's back, guys. Thanks for joining. We're up to 60 viewers right now. Let's see. Yeah, somebody asked earlier about what it costs to enter a professional tour event. Ours are they around 4,500?
Yep.
Ours are around 4,500. I think.
Costas are 1,500.
Yeah, Costas are about 1,500. BFLs are 250 something.
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
the super tournament in Norman was 345.
It's a little bit more,
Yeah,
though.
it's 345 for the super tournament BFLs, which that's a 2-day event.
That's right. And the elites, I think, are what 50.
I'm not sure.
They're over 5,000. I think they're 52 to 5,400 a tournament, something like that. So it's not. I mean, it's definitely you got to have a lot of support to come out here and do it. So and Brian and I both have. We're very fortunate to have great sponsors. Let's see. All right, guys. Actually, Connor asked something. Somebody made a good comment earlier about one of their fears, and it made perfect. Oh, it said it was Michael Bryan. Michael, sorry I didn't address that earlier, but he said a pleasure boater running into you, and that is actually a legitimate fear for us on some lakes. Lake Murray, I promise you, multiple times on Saturday, I almost got ran over. I mean, one guy ran over my line one time, and I try to avoid confrontation at all costs. I mean, as professional anglers,
you've got to.
You got to be really careful about how you. But I had reached a boiling point. I had people running around me in circles all day, and most of the people, in their defense, they don't know any better. They don't know
Yeah, I
out
mean,
there.
they're used to just riding around with everybody.
Right,
So.
and anyway, we had a little verbal disagreement, and I mean it ended fine, but it ended with him jetting off and giving me the number one side. But other than that, I got
Just riding around you or following you?
And no, this was a pleasure boater that actually run over my line. I mean, 30 feet from the boat. My cast is out. Here he comes, 40 miles an hour over my, and
Did you? And of course, you probably left after that.
well, yeah, I came back later, but
Yeah.
he pretty much ruined the spot. So I was fishing a cane pile, and he his boat pretty much plowed that cane pile. I mean, whether he knew it or not, he pretty much center punched that cane pile. So, all right, guys, we'll take a quick break, Jeff.
Yeah.
Take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to answer some pre-show questions. And we've got I've still got a whole stack here. I'm trying to play catch up on some of those. We're going to take your questions live. I saw a few submitted earlier, but we're going to take a bunch of questions live. Y'all stay with us.
Get hands-on with Quaker State. The more miles you tack onto your odometer and the older your engine gets, the more likely your engine seals will start to break down, which can cause your engine to leak. That's why we made Quaker State High Mileage for vehicles with over 75,000 miles. It's formulated with special seal swell conditioners to help reduce leaks, because any other solution to handling those leaks can get a little messy. That's better. Quaker State, just damn good oil.
All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We've actually got some Ltf Apparel that we've been waiting on. Jeff's wearing one of these sweet shirts right now.
Yep.
Compliments of Haybo Outdoors, if anybody's familiar with Haybo Outdoors. We've got the Haybo logo on one side, got the Ltf, the Let's Talk Fish logo on the front, Quaker State on the left sleeve, and then show them the back. Show them the back. Let's see. Yeah, so you can see the back. Got the Ltf logo on the back.
Why are you flexing, Jeff?
What's that?
You're flexing.
He's flexing. He's flexing.
He's flexing.
I didn't think you could see it. Could you see it? Was it obvious?
Oh, it
What's
was
up,
obvious.
Sandon? Thanks for tuning in.
It's good form. Good form.
So those will be available, what, on our Facebook page?
Yeah, probably. I'm trying to have them up tomorrow. I got to run out of town tomorrow, but next day or so, I'm going to put them out.
Okay, so guys,
Yeah.
check out our Facebook
And
page
what
the
are-
next day or two.
What's the price on them?
I don't know. Probably $20 free shipping, something like that.
Oh, free shipping. That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
We'll work out some
Absolutely.
free shipping somewhere in there. So, yeah, guys, get you an LTF shirt if you get a chance. But all right, so let's take some pre-show questions real quick. I know you guys are swinging
Mr.
some
Wilson
questions
back
at
there
us.
is going crazy.
He
He's
is
hungry.
Mr. Wilson's gaining weight. For anybody that missed last week's show, you can
I
see
think
Mr.
he sees
Wilson
that
back
spider.
there.
He's trying to go around.
I'm telling you, he's getting a little gut on him.
He is
And
getting
Jeff
fat.
actually fed him this morning. If you want to see the feeding last week, it was fast and furious.
It was 12.54 seconds.
Today
I
it was
believe,
about
for
8.7.
Yeah, so Jeff fed him this morning. I texted Jeff earlier and was going to see if we needed to bring some fish tonight. But we will. Well, we're going to have a special guest next week, so we might wait till the week after that till we feed him on live again. Or we may let our guests.
We want
do
to talk
something.
about the guest, or you just want to wait to release it? Or
Let's just say this: if you guys like NASCAR, you'll definitely want to tune in next week. We've got he's not a driver, but he's the second. He's one of the oldest. I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. I won't say his name. Yeah, I can't stand it.
I feel like he's going to tell it. He's going to tell it.
He is. I think he's the oldest tire changer in NASCAR, and he's been doing it for a long time. He's been with some of the best teams out there. He's got some funny stories. He loves to fish. He'll be a great guest on next week's show. So
I'm looking forward to that for sure.
yeah, make sure y'all tune in next week.
NASCAR and bass.
What's
fishing.
up, Ernie
NASCAR
Wallace?
and bass fishing.
Exactly.
Ernie Wallace just joined. He's down in Florida restoring power and lights down there for those folks. So appreciate it, Ernie. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining.
He
Yeah.
says almost have all the lights on here. Needed a comic relief, so he joined in. He came to the right place, Ernie.
Exactly.
You just missed me flexing.
Yes, you did.
That was comical. All right, so let's jump into our pre-show questions. This one's from Nick. Question: do you guys run? This is a good question. Do you guys run a through-hole transducer for the console graph? Does this help you see the bottom at high speeds? Brian, you want to answer that?
I do. I've got
We both do.
Yeah, I've got a glassed-in transducer for my graph at the console, and the reason for that is when you're on plane running, if you've got an external transducer, it won't pick up good because you've got the cavitation, which the air bubbles from underneath the hull are going to break up the signal. It won't shoot through it. And plus, if it does, you've got to have your transducer below the hull of the boat, so water's going to hit it. And if you hit a little floating stick, it's going to break it off, and you're going to have trouble. So I always have one glassed in for the console graph. And the reason for that, other than what I said earlier, is it also allows you to watch your sonar while you're running on plane. I mean, I can run that Z520 65 miles an hour, and I can still see the bottom depth. I can see schools of bait. I can see a brush pile if I run over it running that fast. And that's good for practice when you've only got a couple of days of practice, because you never know when you're going to run over something. I mean, you're running 40 mile an hour and you run over a little hump or a little rise that isn't on your map card or something like that. You can turn around and check it out because you've seen it while you were running.
Yeah, it's amazing how much time you can save by graphing while you're on plane.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something a lot of guys don't realize.
Yeah, if you're running in and out of a creek, you can see kind of where balls of bait are, if they're at the mouth of the creek, the back of the creek. I mean, you never know what you're going to see.
And we have a time limit. During our practice, we have a limited amount of time and days we can be on the water. So
yeah, you've got to be efficient.
That makes a big difference. And did you? I was reading comments. Did you talk about the potential of breaking it off?
Oh yeah. So yeah, if it's below
if you mount a transducer externally, you always run the risk of breaking it off. And we're in a lot of skinny water. Quite often, we might hit a log running, that you didn't see or something like that.
And it doesn't have to be a big log to knock that transducer. I mean, it could be as big around as your finger and knock it off.
You hit it right, and it could break that transducer.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it running 40, 50 mile an hour, that's a lot of pressure. It's going to break.
That's right. A lot of different reasons not to mount one externally. And I was talking to Brian about this earlier, I don't think a transducer... I don't think you can mount one through hole on an aluminum boat. I don't even think it'll shoot through an aluminum
boat. I don't know that either.
So if you have an aluminum boat, you may have to mount it, or you might could put something down in there. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. If you have an aluminum boat, investigate that before you go mounting it through.
Does anybody know the answer to that question? Put it in the comments.
Yeah, that would help.
There we go.
We're always looking.
We need help, guys. Help us out.
All right, guys. Next question. This one's from Trey. It says, this is referring to Moss Lake, little local lake that Brian and I fish here. It says, what's your favorite season to fish moss? We'll keep this short and sweet since a lot of people aren't familiar with moss, but that's easy for me.
Yeah.
March.
I like it all year.
Well,
I just like to go fishing. I don't care what time of year it is.
For those that don't fish 12 months out of the year, like myself. And David Thornton asked earlier, he said, why aren't you in the woods? Well, it's not rifle season yet, so that's the reason Brian's not in the woods.
And even if
why aren't you on your porch?
I'd be out of the stand 2 hours ago.
I was going to say, he gets in the last 30 minutes of daylight, sits for 20 minutes, and he walks back out. So
one of the biggest deers I ever killed.
Night. That's why we're not in the woods.
Biggest deer I ever killed, I did that. Off a four-wheeler.
Like a forky horn or something?
Well, I was at the farm down in South Carolina. Taking people out. I used to have 200 and some acres. Used to manage like when in high school, and I was taking people out, putting other stands, and I built a hunting lodge in between my 9th grade and 10th grade year in high school. Some buddies of mine built a hunting lodge out on the farm.
That's pretty neat.
So, it's like a 20 by 20 little building, slept 4, kitchenette. It was a place to go hang out. We're going to the hunting lodge.
Hunting lodge, yeah. A lot of people call it a hunting lodge, and that's just their way to get out and go have a couple
like volleyball night.
Exactly. It just,
Okay.
Yeah.
We actually play volleyball.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. This one's from Nathan. This question's for both Brian and myself. During the fall transition, fishing can be very tough, for sure. On a place like the Tennessee River, what would you do when fish are scattered on flats? You want to start?
I can.
Obviously, make sure the bait's present first.
Yeah, bait, but it depends on what lake you're on the Tennessee River, too. If I'm on a lake like Guntersville, this grass topped out, I'm frogging and flipping. That's all I'm going to want to do, and I'm going to get on that outside grass line and go down it flipping, and I'm going to listen for bluegill. Like what Matt said earlier, bait presence. You get in the area and you hear the bluegill sucking up under the mats, eating bugs.
A little popping sound.
Yeah, sound kind of like popcorn popping similarly, a little quieter.
That's why I brought the popcorn.
But it's definitely noticeable. When you hear that, that's when you want to slow down and really pick that area apart, because the brim are there and those bass aren't far behind.
You think if we put a piece of popcorn in Mr. Wilson's aquarium, they can hear that sound?
I don't know. There's no brim in there. I think you need brim.
Does anybody know if popcorn will kill a fish?
We better not.
we better not. All right, we're not going to try it. Sour Patch would be
no
bad.
way it kills a fish.
You don't think so? It's a lot of butter on that popcorn.
You don't think
that's
a bass
good
is eating popcorn before?
Popcorn will kill us if we eat enough of it.
So Nathan, Brian answered that pretty well. If grass is present, you know, he touched on that. If grass is not present, you know, and you get on those flats, I like to throw a lot of search baits. You know, a rattle trap, a lipless crankbait is great in the fall for those flats in the back of the creeks. A big spook, big walking bait.
Big topwater bait.
Yeah, big topwater bait, buzzbait, or a big spook or something like that's a great search bait for those flats.
The main thing is you want something you can cover water until you get in an area that's alive, that you've got bait and stuff like that around.
Alive is the key word. Yeah, it's got a lot of life in it. Okay, we're going to do, let's see. We got time. We'll do one more pre-show question, then we're going to answer these questions live. We've had a bunch of them come in, so keep them rolling, guys. We'll scroll back through and answer some of those questions. This question is from James. James wants to know how we decide on what reel gear ratio to use on different types of setups. So, very technical question, James, and we do get that question sometimes, but not as much as it probably should be asked.
Exactly, because that's a huge part of the technique you're using is the gear ratio reel you choose. I know I don't know what Matt's preference is, but I pretty much throw 3 gear ratio reels. I throw a 5.4 to 1, I throw a 6.4 to 1, and then I throw a 7.1 to 1. I haven't really got into the high speed like the 8.0 gear ratios and stuff like that yet, but my breakdown of it is, if I'm fishing targets or going down the bank, throwing topwater, jig, something like that, I'm going to definitely have that 7-to-1 gear ratio. Or if I'm fishing out deep on a ledge, making long cast, I want something that's going to take up a lot of line if I've got a long cast out. Because when you set the hook, you want to move that fish and you want to bury that hook as quick as you can. You want to be able to take that line up. And also fishing shallow using that high-speed reel, you want to be able to make as many casts as you can during a day. So say you pitch a bait to a laydown or skip a jig under a dock and you're finished with your cast, you want to get that bait back into you as quick as you can and make another cast. I mean, that's the whole concept of running, gunning, burning the bank, is making as many casts as you can. And that 7-to-1 gear ratio reel allows you to do that. So,
yeah, absolutely. And Brian mentioned 8-to-1. I actually use 5-to-1, 6-to-1s, and 8-to-1s. So I don't even use 7-to-1s. I use my 8-to-1s for what Brian uses his 7-to-1s for. Some companies aren't making 8-to-1s, some do. More and more are starting to make 8-to-1s. And I use those 8-to-1s exclusively for when I'm fishing a lot of close cover targets, flipping, punching, flipping a jig, skipping docks, whatever. Because like Brian said, time's money to us. And let me give you a quick tip. Well, let me finish talking about the 8-to-1 first. But picking up, even when you hit a fish on a jig or something like that, a lot of times those fish want to come away from the cover with it. Yeah. And when they do that, picking up that line super, super quick
and keeping a tight line instead of them running slack in your line. Because if they do that, they're going to get off 80% of the time.
And when you hit them with a big hook, especially a big flipping jig or you're punching or whatever, and they come at you that fast, you've ripped a big hole in the mouth already, and if that line goes slack, it's liable just to fall out. Yeah. So picking that line up quick is important. Covering water, things like Brian touched on, is important with a high gear ratio reel. The 5-to-1s, I use 5-to-1s and 6-to-1s occasionally. 6-to-1s for like my mid-depth cranking, but I use the 5-to-1s for my deep cranking. Yeah. And that's so you don't kill yourself. Because if you go out there and try to crank a 10XD on a 8-to-1 gear ratio reel, you'll die. So that
plus it's kind of a mind thing, because I've trained myself on the low speed reel, but the biggest reason of that is you've got more power. The lower the gear ratio is, the more power you've got in that handle, so it's easier to turn when you're throwing those big crankbaits versus throwing a high speed reel on the big crankbaits. You don't have quite as much power. It's kind of the same concept in a 10-speed bike. I mean, if you're going uphill, you go to a lower gear. You're on flats, you go to a bigger gear. So that's kind of the same concept with it. And the 6.4 reel to me is kind of pretty much all I use that for, is if I'm throwing certain top waters like a pop-R or something like that, a slower type top water, or a jerkbait. I throw all my jerkbaits with a 6-to-4 reel, and I feel like that's the right ratio for me, as far as my pause when I jerk the bait and how much slack I take up between the jerks, so I don't move the bait with the reel. I let the bait do what it's designed to do and set motionless. After I make that jerk, I take up a little bit of slack, and it just works good for me. That's pretty much all I use the 6.4 for.
Yeah, you're not giving that jerkbait any unnatural action. Right. You're accidentally picking up too much line.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you jerk that jerkbait and you're throwing a the high speed gear ratio reel, when you take up your slack, odds are you're going to take up more than you need, and you're going to end up winding the jerk bait forward instead of twitching it and making it do what it's supposed to do.
That's right, exactly. And I do use a 6-to-1 also for some of my swim baits, some of my like 5 and 6 and 7 inch soft plastic swim baits. And the reason being, most of those require slow, steady retrieve, and the worst thing you can do is speed a swim bait up like that and kills action or makes it roll over, do something unnatural.
Yeah, you want it to be natural. You want to keep a nice fluid motion and constant, steady deal. Yeah. That's what I like to do.
And guys, I'm gonna just talk in general here, because a lot of people out there, they're not going to be able to go out and buy one of every gear ratio reel. So get something in the middle. I wouldn't get a 6-to-1 or a 5-to-1. I'd go with a 7-to-1. Don't go to 8-to-1. That's too fast. You can always slow down a high-speed reel, but it's really hard to speed up a low-speed reel.
Exactly. That's perfect.
Yeah, so that's did y'all hear that? Brian just told me I was perfect.
That's perfect. I can't even add to it.
That's a good tip for you guys out there that are looking to buy some new reels, and you don't really, you don't really want to go out there and buy 5-to-1s, 6-to-1s. If you want to get 2 or 3 new reels, get all 7-to-1s, and you can just slow those down according to whatever you're using.
Right.
Quick break. We're coming back. Answer some questions live. We're going to do some more live interaction here, guys. So stay with us.
All right, we're back live here. Matt's over there checking out some questions, scrolling back.
Yep, Brian, if you see something you want to jump
Brian's doing the same. I see some good ones here.
My first comment, cheers to Todd Seisner with the sun drop calling me out.
I saw that.
This is a no smoking room, otherwise he'd have a Marlboro Light hanging out.
Hey now.
All right, let's go
tell
back.
All my secrets.
Yeah, let's go back. Ryan. Let's see, Ryan earlier, he wanted to know, he said, do you ever throw a buzzbait on braid? And do you guys ever skip with braid? I feel more comfortable having braid on my skipping rods, but seems like a lot of people don't skip with braid. Why is that?
I skip some baits with braid, like a frog.
Yep.
Frogs, 100%. I definitely skip with a buzzbait, or skip with braid. Buzzbait, I still like mono. I've got more control with mono. If it's a bait I can get away with mono, I'll use it. And I throw a frog sometimes on a 25-pound mono. I mean, I'll do that some. I just feel like I've got more control with it on my cast, and I can be a little more accurate. So.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I skip a frog on braid. Other than that, there's not really anything else out there I skip on braid. But I use the P-Line PF Original. I don't know, is that the same mono you use? That PF Original, the castability is unmatched. And that's my go-to line on buzzbait. So hope that answers your question. Ryan Love said Wolfpack. Woohoo! Take that, Jeff.
Hey, I'd like the Wolfpack.
Who's the Wolfpack's rival? I don't even know.
Brian Taylor asked earlier. We get this question about every week. He said,
"He skipped that."
I've
got a question. Somebody asked. Never mind. I won't even. That's all he'll talk about.
North Carolina.
Said, if your mama said can't say nothing nice, don't say it.
It's got to be North Carolina, right?
I really don't know.
Either one of you.
He's not going to answer the question.
What was the question?
We don't want to know. We know.
Who's the Wolfpack rival?
By you not answering,
right? It's Tar Heels.
By you not answering the question, we know the answer to the question.
State's #1 rival is probably Tar Heels.
Gotcha.
As a state fan, you don't like to talk about that because those rivalries don't come out very good in my favor very often. So let's see. Back to Brian Taylor said, either one of you plan on moving to the Bassmaster Elite Series? Brian, as of right now, I have zero plans to move over there. Don't have any reason to leave.
Yeah, I don't have any reason to leave either. I'm very happy fishing for FLW and plan to stay there.
Yeah, our sponsors, the way our sponsors align and the scheduling, and that's where we started. So that's where we plan to stay for now. Let's see. All right, let's keep scrolling down. Let's see. Jason Yunt said, Brian. All right, Brian, this one's for you. Brian, congrats on a great season. Did your practices this year dictate how you would fish on tournament days, or did you have to fish more in the moment on tournament days? Again, congrats on a great season.
Ooh, that's probably half and half. I mean, I would say half the times I would be fishing stuff I had confidence in that I found in practice, and then the other half I would just wing it and fish random stuff that looked right or stuff I hadn't fished in practice, hoping. That's the good thing about practice. If you don't find anything, you've always got other stuff to try, because there's no way you can try everything in practice. So you can always wing it and, swing for the fence, as they call it. Never know. Might hit a home run.
Yeah, that's right. Luke Helms, good question. When you aren't catching fish, do you lean more towards fishing with different lures, styles, or relocate to a different area of the lake? Well, Luke, and I'll start, and we'll probably have similar answers here, but we typically, especially in tournament, we're not fishing there unless we know fish are there. And if we know they're there, if we're confident in that fish are there, we're going to keep adjusting our presentations until we do get bit. That goes back to talking about versatility earlier, and being able to expose fish in an area when other guys could go right over top of them because they tried one thing and then they left. Relocating areas, we do that in practice. I mean, you get in dead areas of the lake, and that if it's void of bait, if it's void of bluegill, it's void of crawfish, and it's just void of bass.
Exactly.
There are areas in certain, whether it's the wrong bottom contour or whatever. So.
Right, and it's not that the areas are void of bass; it's just they're void of catchable bass.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll say that.
Now there are areas that don't have the right bottom composition.
But I still think, like, in my mind, I think there's fish everywhere on a lake. But I think
there's higher concentrations of fish in
certain areas. But I still think there's, for some reasons, just they won't bite in certain areas. Sometimes there's always a hot section of the lake. A perfect case in point is that I've seen this the most commonly is at Table Rock Lake. I mean, you've pretty much got three big arms on Table Rock. You've got the White River, the James River, and what's
Kings. That? The Kings, isn't it? No. It's the one where
the one that goes that way.
Yeah, the one that goes backwards. That's the weirdest. It's the weirdest lake in the world. There's two rivers. Anyway, the upper end of the lake, Long
Creek. That's the name of it.
Long Creek.
All right.
That's it.
You've got those three arms, and I've been to Table Rock 3 times, and every time I've been there, a different arm has been the place to be. I think the first year I was there, the James was where it was happening. Like 8 of the top 10 guys came out of the James portion on Table Rock Lake. The next time we were there, I ended up finishing 3rd or 4th. Brent Ayler won it, and like 8 of the top 10 came out of the White River that year. And then the next time we were there in April, like 8 of the top 10 came out of the Long Creek area. So I think there's fish kind of evenly spread out on each lake, but I just think certain sections happen to be turned on at a specific point of the year. I mean, I don't know how to determine which place that's going to be. You just got to cover water and figure it out, but there'll definitely be one area of the lake that's noticeably better than the other areas of the lake. And that's why I put so much emphasis on covering water, because you're going to hit that 8 to 10 mile stretch where it's just happening. Like everywhere you stop, you get a bite, or you feel like you're going to get a bite, and then you'll get in an area where you just feel like you're not going to get a bite, and you don't. So always cover water and try to find that area that's on.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good answer. Wesley Bray asked earlier. It's a good question for this time of year. I might have to let Brian answer this because I don't fish as much as Brian does this time of year. I'm deer hunting. What is your recommendation on the best soft plastic for fishing docks in the fall? Do you prefer a jig or a Texas rig worm?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It is.
I'm going to say, as far as getting bites and consistently catching fish and doing well, I'm going to go with the Texas rig worm or the shaky head. I mean, my personal favorite is the 4-inch Demiki Stinger. And I'm going to probably throw it on a shaky head. I'm going to downsize to some 8-pound P-line, and that's my confidence bait. That's if I've got a tournament and I know I've got to catch 5, and that's what I'm going to throw.
Yeah, Brian said this the other week. That's a good way to keep them honest.
Yeah.
Because there are when Andy and myself talked about our favorite bait to throw, when Andy was on the show the other week and we said a jig and you went back to saying a worm. And the reason for that, Brian said, was that it keeps them honest, and there's times when fish will not bite a jig, but they will. Yeah. They will, most of the time, they'll commit to that worm. Right. So, all right, let's see. I scrolled down to the bottom of our feed just a minute ago, and I saw the guys starting to talk about carp fishing.
I see that. I see something about some milk.
Brian doesn't carp fish, but
I know about it.
I about went broke carp fishing years ago as I tried to quit, but I'm still trying to quit. No, I hadn't been in a couple of years. I do visit the lake every once in a while, but over here at Bowlins is where I go, local lake here in Shelby. Let's see. Let's keep scrolling down through here. Connor Hatch said, do y'all run full throttle all the time when pleasure fishing?
I do not.
Probably think we do, but I very rarely do I run full throttle.
If I'm practicing for a tournament, if it gets toward the end of practice, I may be running full throttle just to try to cover more water, especially if I'm scrambling, if it hadn't been a good practice. But, if I'm fun fishing out here around the house, just a fun day on the water, I'm running 40, 45 mile an hour, a little less than half throttle, just putting around, taking it easy.
I'm the same way. Excuse me, my mouth's full. I had to dig deep to find something that wasn't green because Brian's picked through all the good colors.
No, there's lots of them. Look at them.
But during practice, I run, 35. See, he just took the last blue one. 35 to 50 miles an hour. You want to make sure you see everything. So when you run around the lake 70 mile an hour, you're going to miss stuff, especially fish might blow up somewhere and reveal themselves. Yeah. You might find a giant school of fish just by seeing something like that.
Yep.
A shad flicker on the water, a seagull dive, anything. Mm-hmm. So be real observant. And no, we don't run full speed, so we can be observant.
Those are tasty. Appreciate you bringing those.
Yeah. Who owns
this company? Is that the first ever Sour Patch Kid?
I've never had one.
First, how old are you?
Well, you've been. Thanks for bringing that up. I'll be 41 tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday, Jeff!
Jeff's got a birthday tomorrow, and you'll be how old?
To say it twice?
Yeah.
41.
All right, so just making sure he's.
So you've lived 41 years without a Sour Patch Kid.
I don't think I've ever had one. Now Leslie eats the watermelon. They have watermelon Sour Patch.
Yeah, those are good.
I don't know.
Yeah, she likes those.
All right, let's see here. Jason Lawson. All right, Jason wants to know, Hunter White and myself are fishing Falls Lake next weekend. What should we focus on? I'm driving and listening to you on my radio. Thanks. Jason, Falls. I fished Falls when I spent some time at NC State for the 5 years that I was at NC State. I did spend some time out on Falls, and Falls is a very unique fishery. It's got a lot of really, really big fish in it. But we would catch a lot of fish deep up there this time of year, even on into the early fall until they start making that transition. Water level dictates a lot at that lake. I've seen it when it was 10 foot up in the trees, and I've seen it when it was 3 foot away from the any bush or any laid out in the water.
I've never been there, so
it's
I can't
a phenomenal
comment.
lake. I mean, that little area around Raleigh, Falls, Jordan, and Sharon Harris.
Yeah, I've heard there
are three of the best lakes in our state, hands down, for quality fish.
Right. And there's a lot of natural cover, grass and woods and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
I wouldn't like it then. I like docks. No docks.
And Falls is a what's that river that feeds Falls? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, Jason, to answer your question, I would start out by graphing out deep just to see if there's any schools left out there if they hadn't been busted up too hard. Next thing I'd be looking at is the bridges on Falls. Those bridges on Falls hold fish 12.
Yeah, there's a lot of riprap. I know the few tournaments I've followed there's a lot of riprap fishing.
Yep, and if the water's up for some reason, I doubt it is now, but check the water level. If the water's up, there'll definitely be some fish in the bushes and the lay down, things like that. But the bridges and that riprap would be.
And that's always a good location, especially on a lake in the fall, because you've got a choke point, and when those shad migrate to go up a creek or somewhere, which is typically where your bridges are going to be found, they've got to go through there. The bait's got to go through there, and the bass are going to just sit there and wait on them to come to them.
That's right. And this time of year, late summer, early fall, I love to run those rivers too. I like to go to the back of those rivers. Now, be careful doing that at Falls because you can tear your stuff up. But there's some good fish up that river. So look at the river if you get a chance to ease up there. Now, I would recommend if you never run it before, idle it, take your time, ease your way up through there, look for those channel swing banks and things like that that might get you a few bites. Let's see, next question. Oh, actually, the question after that, Lake Sharon Harris was recently ranked number 4 in the nation by Bassmaster magazine. Is it really that good? And why? It's funny. We were just talking about this lake. The reason it got that ranking is because of those 40-something pound bags that were caught basically back-to-back weeks there this year.
I've never been there either.
That lake is only about 3,000 or 4,000 acres.
Oh, so it's small.
It's a tiny lake. I used to duck hunt that lake when I was at NC State, and I should have fished it more. But
there he goes again.
Evidently,
NC State.
It was still. I'm going to name drop NC State as much as I can on this show. Just
by the way, your wife knows the rival. She spit it out 2 seconds.
She said Carolina, right?
No, specifically Tar Holes.
Oh, she said Tar Holes. Yeah, so there's probably a bunch of Tar Heel fans watching. I don't care. But anyway, so David, that's a slot lake. It's a trophy fishery. It has a slot limit on it.
I didn't even know that.
It has a slot limit on it. So I think it's like, I don't know exactly what the slot is. If somebody knows it, they can knock it in down. They can punch it in down here.
It's probably similar to
it's
Lake
like 15
Fork,
to 20 inches or something.
Yeah.
So anything, or 16 to 20, anything between in that slot you cannot keep, even in tournament situations. Which is a little silly in my opinion, but we won't talk. That's for
evidently it's working.
Y'all going to start needing to practice
that. A redfish guy over here. Everything he fishes is slots.
Yeah, that's true.
Y'all going to need to get used to that, because when we pull this tournament off that we planned last week.
You play the tournament, and
the
we're involved.
redfish bass tournament.
Brian.
Oh yeah.
2 days of redfish, 2 days of bass.
2 days of redfish and 2 days of bass?
Yeah.
Total cumulative weight or something? Or?
I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it.
We'll figure out this challenge.
It's not going to be in inches.
Y'all going to... No.
So there haven't been any major tournaments there, David. That lake is way too small to host any major tournaments. They do some small team trails there, but it's much too small. The slot limit that applies to the lake makes it pretty tough to get around that, too. So hope that answers your question. Let's see... Wesley Braid, thanks, man, for the shout-out. He said, this show is as good as any TV show in relation to fishing. I really enjoy it. Well, Wesley, thank you for watching. We enjoy helping you guys out best we can and having a good time with it.
Matt Stanley says the slot on Sharon Harris is 16 to 20 inches.
16 to 20, so anything in that 16 to 20 inch size.
Evidently, it's working for the lake because it's taking 40 pounds to win sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's got 10
I guess it's one of them deals where if the fishing's good, it takes 40 pounds to win, but if the fishing's not good, it takes like 10 pounds to win.
Oh, yeah. Ryan Love touched on a gear ratio statement. Ryan said 6 to 1 great for spinning, in my opinion. We didn't really talk about spinning reels earlier.
I don't even know the gear ratios on a spinning reel.
This coming from our angler of the year doesn't even know the gear ratio on the spinning reels. All mine are 6 to 1, Ryan, so I'm with you on that one. But all
his have the handle on the wrong side of the reel, so you can't really... I mean, you got to take that for what it's worth.
Guys, if you reel a bait caster right-handed, Jeff, I'm going to ask you to.
You're opposite.
And guys,
you're opposite on spinning.
Y'all let me know what you do. We're going to prove who's
your concept is flawed.
Who's weird? If you reel a bait caster right-handed.
Right-handed like this.
And you throw a spinning reel, do you reel it with your left hand or your right hand?
It's the same motion. Why would you swap hands?
I'm going to prove him wrong right now. Him and Jacob Wheeler. When I roomed with Jacob for 4 years, he said I was now.
I mean, are y'all going to believe me and Jacob Wheeler or Matt? Really?
We're going to let the majority decide. We're going to let the majority decide.
Let me hear. All right. You're holding a bait caster. You've got the rod in your hand. The reel is over here. You're winding it like this. You've got a spinning rod. The rod is in your hand. You're winding it like this.
Jason Johnson.
JJ don't count.
Thanks for watching. Jason is an expert with a spinning rod. He lives at Lake Lanier, fishes for them big spots, drops shots year-round. The guy's a magician with a spinning rod. He reels. It's opposite with a spinning reel. It's supposed to be opposite with a spinning reel. There you go.
No,
there you have it. I win. You lose.
No. All right. Again, Wheeler, Thrift, Matt, Jason.
Oh, wow. There's actually about 50-50 left hands and right hands coming in.
Exactly.
Now, if you reel a bait caster left-handed, then you
should
swap
to your
right-handed. Yes,
why?
Absolutely.
That makes no sense. Why you got to be a switch hitter? Why don't you just do it all the same?
I do left. Andy, I hate to break it to you, man. You just might be weird. He said, I'm a right-handed, but I reel both bait casters and spinning left.
I know a lot of guys like that, actually. Pretty much, I think if you live in Florida or California, you throw left-handed bait casters. I think that's how it goes.
And eat Sour Patch Kids.
Chris.
I don't know about that.
Hamry, I hope I said your last name right, Chris. He said Matt has it right. Will you screenshot that, Brian, so you can say that?
No, he does not. He does not.
All right, guys, let's go back to some Let's see.
Right. See, I think it's half and half.
Kylie Wisdom
but I think
asked, who's the better fisherman? Jason Wilson. That's a lot. He's talking about some local sticks. Jason Wilson, Rob Dye, or Scott Hamrick. Brian
depends on which one you ask. I mean, that's
he nailed it. Yeah,
depends on which one you ask.
So, what name brand reels do you guys use? Michael Bradley asked that. I use all Okuma, mostly Helios. I like the Helios Okuma. They make an 8-to-1. I use 8-to-1, 6-to-1s, 5-to-1s, like we said earlier. The spinning reel I use with them is the RTX spinning reel. They're all 6-to-1s that I use. Brian, your reels?
I use all Revos. That's all I use.
Ryan Love said, dude, my 1.5-year-old boy loves Sour Patch Kids.
See, you've got something in common with somebody.
I think he's picking on us. My 5-year-old daughter loves Sour Patch Kids.
Who doesn't love Sour Patch? Jeff has never ate one, and he just tried one.
They
and
are
he
delicious.
It. So
they are delicious.
There you go.
David Thornton wanted to know how he gets a hat. We got the shirts that'll be up for sale on Facebook tomorrow. David, I hope the hats aren't far behind.
They got to be coming soon.
They should be here in the next
week
Matt, or two.
How'd you get one? They're not here yet.
I'm special. I had
That's why you run the spinning reel with the handle on the left side. There you have it, folks.
I had two samples sent to me so we can look at them, and I have 2 samples. If you want one that's got sweat stains and all kinds of stuff, I'll send you this one.
Can I get one with the logo on the right side like my spinning reel handle?
No, we don't make that. Let's see. Brian New nailed you. He said, Thrift, you've never had a good practice. He's got a great
I have not.
Great point.
I almost had one time.
All right, back to a serious question. Brian Taylor, good question. Do you think bass get conditioned to seeing the same lures? 100% yes.
Yes. I think me and Matt have seen it a lot at Moss Lake. We fish every Thursday night. I mean, a couple years ago, we were catching them on fish head spin really good.
Yep.
That lasted about 2 years. Then it went to a swim bait, and that lasted about 2 years. And now they're on something else, but we're not going to let that cat out of the bag.
we got to try to hold that as tight as we can. So, yeah, it is funny because we've seen it.
It's about a 2 or 3 year cycle, it seems like.
Yeah, on moss, but that I see it really apply on those ledge lakes.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
get
true.
Super conditioned. That's when, even on a drop shot. You know what I noticed last time we were at Kentucky Lake?
I guess it's got to do with, I mean, those type of situations where you've got a multitude of people fishing the same exact spot. I think they'll get accustomed to baits then if they're constantly getting pressured like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Steve Shaw said, you guys need a food sponsor. I agree, Steve. We need a food sponsor.
What would it be? What would your food sponsor be?
My food sponsor? I don't know.
I know what mine would be.
What?
It would be Sour Patch Kids.
No, I gotta go.
Minus the green. I want a bag of Sour Patch Kids that doesn't have any
all
green
blue
in the bag. Nobody eats green Sour Patch Kids. All blue. I can deal with that.
I gotta disagree. Wiley likes the lime and the lemon flavors in everything. See, it works out perfect for me. We get a bag of something like this. He eats all the yellow and greens, and I get all the red and blues, which are the best.
You got a bag to take a green. A little bit,
I'd have to go with Jimmy John's.
Jimmy John's.
And I'll probably start working on that tomorrow because that is a good idea.
That is a good idea.
All right, John Hall.
I want something hearty like a lamb chop sponsor. That'd be pretty good. Everybody loves lamb chops.
You know, high roller over here wants a lamb chop sponsor.
Really?
Yes.
Lamb chops. Hey,
I want a bone-in ribeye sponsor.
Yeah,
that's what
lamb chops are way better.
I need to get you.
I like lamb chops.
They're delicious.
They are.
All right, John Hall. Good question. I'm thinking about going FLW Costa Series in 2018. Is this a good way to start if you want to go semi-pro? Yeah, John, my advice to you, I mean, I hope you've touched in the BFL levels and had some experience at your local and regional levels. The Costa guys, there's some really good fishermen, and you may jump in there and win every tournament. We don't know, but just a word of advice.
Ray Hanselman did that.
Yeah, Ray Hanselman did that.
That was awesome here.
That's I don't think
I've never seen that either. That was awesome.
That being said, John, it is a great way to kind of get your feet wet at I would call that the semi-pro level. I would call that the AAA level. There's some really good fishermen, and you'll get to see a variety of lakes. So, yeah, great question. And
we have a special guest that just joined.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if he just joined, but he just commented. Spencer Borders. He likes the lime. I guess that's the green.
That's
Well, he'll have to fight Wiley over.
Spencer, he's right next to us here at the studio. He's got an office here.
Oh, yeah.
And his son, Bly, helped us check the mics before the show and helped us eat some of this popcorn, so we appreciate it.
The Sour Patch Kids.
That's right. That's right.
Glad you guys are on watching.
Yeah, we, let's see. It's any tips on fishing floating docks? This one's from Weston McChristian. I always fished them when I go by, but I feel like I hardly can't any from them. Can't get any maybe bites from them. I'm assuming that's what he's asking. Weston, yeah, I mean, I think one of the tips to fishing floating docks is become a good skipper.
That and floating docks are kind of wishy-washy. I mean, fish, they're either on them or they're not. And it seems like floating docks are better post-spawn docks. When you've got fish that are recovering from the spawn, they'll lay up under the shade of a floating dock kind of better than they will a dock with vertical poles that are actually down in the bottom of the lake. So that's something to try, too. If you're not having success on the floating docks this time of year, try them again post-spawn. You know, I don't know what area of the country you're in, but here around where we're at, you know, April, May, that time frame, kind of try hitting them then and throw top water or something like that swim a jig around them, throw a swim bait or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good. And you know, I noticed in the springtime too, when those fish get done spawning, a lot of places they'll stop on their way out. It's to suspend up underneath the float.
Especially if you go by them and you start seeing the bluegill and stuff laying under the floats. That's when you really want to focus on them and see if you can put a pattern together with them.
Yeah, that's when I like to throw a swim bait, something that gets down there about a foot or two below the float.
Yeah,
or even a wacky worm or something like that.
Yeah, wacky worm's great on floating docks in that post-spawn time frame.
Absolutely. Let's see. Seeing some good questions down here, guys. Keep them rolling. We're going to keep rolling if y'all keep rolling. So Jason Johnson said we can arm wrestle decide who's right on the spinning reel, by the way, Brian. So
left or right?
We don't have that. That's pretty good.
It's going to make a difference.
Jason, I don't think it's going to matter. I know Jason. You know Jason. Jason, we might have you on the show if you'll drive up here and jump on the show.
Just to arm wrestle with.
Just to arm wrestle Thrift.
Yeah.
I'll ref.
Jason's a lot bigger than me.
Let's see. Rich Craft wants to know, do any of y'all back reel a spinning reel? I do not.
I don't either.
I'm not coordinated enough to do that.
I've heard of that.
I've watched guys do it.
But I don't understand the concept on it, because spinning reels, the whole point of it is their drag smooth enough to handle that light line. So, I mean, let that drag work for you. I know I'll set my drag pretty tight to set the hook on a fish, and once I hook him, if it feels like a good one, I'll reach up there and back off on the drag with my left hand, because my right hand is turning the reel. And I don't ever do the back reeling deal. So.
He said either. He's ambidextrous, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, ambidextrous.
Let's see.
I am too. I can reel it with my right hand, and then I can turn it upside down and reel it backwards with my right hand.
I had a guy who used to play baseball with when I was a kid. He was amphibious. That's what he told the coach.
Amphibious. That's pretty. I wish I was amphibious. I'd probably catch more bass.
He said, "You can hit from both sides." Yes, sir. I'm amphibious.
Was that a Gamecock that said that?
What's that?
South Carolina Gamecock that said that?
No, I'm pretty sure it was up in the Raleigh area.
Maybe it was a Tar Hole. It was a Wolfpacker that said that.
Had to
All
be.
right, so let's see. Guy
probably studying poultry science.
Dylan, they're still cracking on my school, man. Dylan Smith said, this is a good question for Brian, because he's got quite a bit of experience up there. The only experience I have on Lake James is duck hunting. And he said, if you had an FLW event at Lake James in North Carolina, how surprised do you think would the locals be at the weights that would be caught?
I think most of the locals that live up around Lake James and fish it, I don't think they would be that surprised. There's a lot of good fish in Lake James. I mean, there's a lot of big largemouth, I mean really big ones, 7-8 pounders, and a lot of big smallmouth. I mean, it's not uncommon to catch 20-22 pounds of smallmouth, especially, I mean, I've seen them. I mean, there's some huge ones in that lake. So I think it would be good. I think people that don't normally fish Lake James might be surprised at the weights, but the ones that fish it, they wouldn't be surprised.
Y'all about got called cheaters up there one time, didn't you?
For what?
Because y'all caught such a big bag of smallmouth and nobody could believe you did it.
Nah,
Didn't y'all weigh in like a 20-pound bag of smallmouth?
Yeah, me and Andy did, but I mean, it was pretty common. Yeah.
I thought second was like 12 pounds or something.
No, second was like 18.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That must have been different. Y'all hurt a lot of feelings around this area back when y'all fished team tournaments together. So.
That was a good one, too, because I was just up there at Lake James fun fishing, and I caught like 20 pounds off the bed just playing around. And Andy called me, and he's like, man, there's a tournament up there tomorrow. You want to fish it? I said, yeah, we'll fish it. It's like, I caught like 20 pounds off. We went back the next day and caught those same fish and weighed them in.
You got to love that about smallmouth on the bed. You can catch them. And I knew this one.
Except for one. This was way back, 15 years ago before we ever traveled and got to catch a lot of big smallmouth. There was one great big one. Back then, it was a great big one. I didn't end up catching it the day before, and we pulled up on it. I told Ed, I was like, man, this is a big one here. And he caught it, and it weighed like right at 5 pounds. And I wasn't mad, but I was like, man, I wanted to catch that one because that's been the biggest smallmouth I've ever caught. But Andy caught it.
Andy caught it. John Franklin said, "What's up, guys? All the Lake Norman boys on here, guys." John, thanks for joining. Logan Taylor, good question. I fish a small 500-acre lake in West Tennessee full of 8 to 10 pounders.
Ooh, I want to come.
Yeah, when we going, Logan? In the winter, it seems the only thing that works great is an umbrella rig, and that feels like cheating. In our tour, it is cheating. Any suggestions for an alternative to that that will get as many bites? I don't know that there's an alternative that'll get as many bites,
especially in the wintertime.
Yeah,
it's so fun. To me, I mean, I love throwing a rig. I mean, when they're biting it, it's just like any other bait. If you go to take the championship at Lake Murray, if you weren't throwing a topwater, you weren't going to win.
Yeah,
it's the same way with the A-rig. When that bite's on, if you're not throwing it, you're not going to win. And it's like that with a lot of baits. So,
he's looking for an alternative though, because he's not. It doesn't sound like Logan's fishing tournaments. He's just fishing for fun. So he wants an alternative.
Really, you've only got 2 choices in my book, and that's a suspending jerkbait of some type. And some sort of crankbait. Maybe a swim bait.
And you can catch them sometimes. If those fish are up off the bottom, which if you're catching them on A-rig, sounds like they are.
Yeah.
A deep diving jerkbait or something like that.
Yeah, that would be my first choice other than the A-rig.
Something else that works really good around here when it's super cold is a grub.
Yeah.
A small soft plastic grub, like a 3-inch grub. Brian getting old, man.
I am.
But you're not as old.
Get some new chairs in here.
You're not as old as Jeff.
I'm not as old as Jeff.
But try a grub too on like an 8 ounce or 3/16 ounce.
Number 3.
Count it down to where depth you think those fish are, and wind it super slow and super steady. You'll pick up a few fish that way. And if they get down on the bottom, if there's some rock or something in that lake,
big jig.
Yeah, you can drag a jig real slow out there to catch a big one doing that. All right, so
Ryan says, great show, guys. Keep them coming. Great to hear from top anglers that don't just give the standard answers to things.
That's one thing we will never do. We will not give a standard answer.
When we talked about this over breakfast, nothing's planned, nothing's rehearsed, and it's not going to be like anything else out there. At least that was the goal. Obviously you're not going to give away. Yeah, you're not going to give away money-winning secrets.
Well, yeah, we're not going to talk about
a day
110% everything, but we're going to spill a lot more to you guys than the average angler. I'll promise you that.
Yeah, and that was the goal going in, so I appreciate you saying that. And I say we're because I'm in the room, but we're going to continue to do that. And I'm learning just as much as you guys because I don't do the freshwater thing much at all, but you never know.
Some redfish questions.
You never know.
If we do get a random red fisherman on here, I think I saw Blake Smith join earlier. But Blake, you might want to ask Blake some questions.
Blake is actually would be a great guest to be on the show.
Yeah, he would be.
So
Blake lives in Florida, but Blake, if you're ever in the area, we would love to have you.
That's an open invitation, Blake. So I'll hit you up and we'll see if we can get that scheduled.
Let's see. Let's keep scrolling down. Jason wanted to know.
We can't answer that question.
I fish a spot. Yeah, we're going there next year.
We got to compete. We got to come to your house and try to beat you, Jason.
I fish a spot.
How can we do that? I think Jason should answer that question.
Big, large mouth, but not as plentiful. Wondering what the dynamic duo drift Arey secret.
I'll answer that question if you will tell me how to beat you in March at Lanier.
Wait.
That's a fair trade.
I tell you what, Jason.
That's a fair trade.
Let's just see how it shakes out next March, and then shoot that question back to us, and we'll determine how we answer it then. How about that?
When JJ's holding the trophy over his head, we'll have to have him up the next week to be on the talk show.
Let's see. Tyler Calloway. Either of you fish Smith Mountain, and can you somewhat compare it to Norman? Headed down to Norman soon. Tyler, yes. I can definitely compare it to Norman in the way that it sets up. It's chock full of fish. The only thing that Smith Mountain lacks, unless it's changed since a couple years ago, last time I was there, is a spotted bass that Norman has, which does change the fishery and the way you can approach it because of how accessible they are 12 months out of the year, and they seem to be easier to catch to me.
And it's getting where you can win with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Jason wins a bunch of tournaments down Lanier on just straight spotted bass.
Jason said he was talking about Harwell, not Lanier.
Oh yeah, good try.
It's the same.
So Norman's very heavily populated with docks, deep brush. Smith Mountain sets up similar at the lower end. I've only fished it twice. Fished in the BFL regional back about 10 years ago, and I fished a coaster there when the fish were actually on the bed. Got two main river arms that feed it. It's primarily very clear on the lower end.
What are you talking about?
Smith Mountain Lake.
Oh yeah.
Are you here?
Kinda.
He's been over stretching his back and stuff. I'm a little worried about Brian over here. He might be.
I'm trying to figure out JJ's angle. He's working an angle on us, and I'm trying to figure it out.
He might be filing disability after the night show because of his chair.
Have we got that?
But yeah, Tyler,
I've got a brand new disability policy today.
Ooh. All right, Tyler, it is very similar.
How much liability insurance we got?
Y'all are killing me. You can approach Norman very similar, and
you might get hurt in Spencer's office. I'm sure he has it.
Let's see. Norman equals here today, gone tomorrow. That's what Chad said. Chad, I like that. Yeah, that's great. Best bait on Lake Hartwell in about a month. Jonathan Carter wants to know.
Got to be a topwater of some sort.
Let's see.
I don't know. I've never been to Hartwell in the fall.
Yeah, Hartwell's there ought to be plenty of schooling fish still, I would think.
A month? You talking about middle of October?
Yeah, so that's a tricky question, John, because that's going to be a big time transition.
It's not going to be cold yet. I doubt we've had a frost by then.
Yeah, highly unlikely. Let's see. David Fields fishing Lake Murray big bass this weekend. He said baits. A couple bait options, Brian. What would you recommend he throw? If you're fishing for them big ones, man, I'd pick.
Yeah, I'm going to throw something big. I'm going to commit to one or the other. I'm either going to commit to the big walking topwater bait out offshore on the shoals and humps, or I'm going to commit to the bank with a buzzbait. One or the other.
Let's see. All right, Tucker Corey. In tournament fishing, yeah, actually, David, Jonathan answered your question. Big chrome pencil poplar and a fluke. Plopper. Big chrome pencil popper and a fluke.
Pencil plopper?
Yeah, pencil plopper. We might be onto something there. A pencil plopper. All right, so Jonathan, I'd be amazed. You talk about getting conditioned to a bait. I bet the week after the Cup happened, there was
I bet they've seen every walking bait.
Yeah. But you'll still catch them out there on that stuff, I'm sure. And if you're fishing for big bites, I would definitely stick with things like that. Tucker Corey said, in tournament fishing, how do you react if you have no fish with only an hour left, and after the tournament, what is the best way to cope with having a bad tournament? Go ahead, Brian. I'll let you. Well, Brian never has this situation. Maybe I should answer.
I do have this. I did it.
Go ahead.
2 years ago, we were at Pickwick Lake, and I had like 20 minutes before weigh-in. And I'm running around. I finally, I wait till the last minute. I pick up my little 4-inch Damiki stinger, and it saved my butt on a shaky head. It does that a lot. That's my confidence bait. That's what I do. And as far as coping with a bad tournament, time is really the only thing that helps me. I mean, I've got to deal with it myself. My wife helps me a lot.
You talked about that on show number 1 or 2?
Yeah, that support group.
Yeah, my wife will help me out a lot because I'll be so mad at myself because usually if I don't do good, I mean, really, it's my fault. It's nobody else's fault.
That's right.
I can't blame it on anybody else. The only person I can be mad at is me. So I get mad at myself, and she'll kind of talk me out of it. She'll tell me I don't suck or something like that.
And everything's okay.
But when Thrift's in second place, he calls me, how'd you do today, man? I sucked. So what place you in? Second. But I sucked. So that being said, Brian's definition of sucking is not the same as my definition of sucking. Yeah. But okay, so I'll answer that question too. And you know, I at this level, you cannot afford to hit the panic button and freak out. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
We can't afford to do that. So mentally, we have to be as mentally strong. That goes back to fishing with an open mind, keeping a clear head, no matter how bad your day's going, how many fish you've lost, or how many you have at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, or how much bad things have happened as far as losing fish or something like that. Because if you get in that frame of mind, when you do get that next bite, you're going to miss him or you're going to lose him or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to happen. And there's going to be plenty of tournaments where everything is going wrong. You're doing the right thing.
Like getting on your spot with your rods locked in your locker, falling out of the boat, drinking out of pee bottles, all the above. You just got to stay focused.
That's right.
You got to stay focused.
But I guess his question is kind of asking how you do stay mentally strong, how you do recover from that. I mean, for me, it's been experience over the years has helped me cope with that a lot better.
Yeah.
Becoming a better angler gives you more confidence in convincing yourself that, I just lost a 5-pounder, but I'm getting ready to catch another one. You know, make yourself believe that.
Yeah, or like fighting a fish to the boat and say he comes off, don't slam your rod around. I mean, wind that bait in, throw back out there because odds are there's another one out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You just got to figure out and worry about that next bite. Don't think about that last one.
Yeah, because
confidence. All about confidence.
You can't change what's already happened. I mean, that's in the past. You might as well focus on what's fixing to happen and be prepared for it. I know it's easy to say, but it's hard to do.
Brian, you just answered that one. Wayman Coleman said, during a tough tournament, what's your go-to bait to get 5 in the box? A shaky head with some kind of straight, soft plastic worm on it. I mean, that's 100% a confidence bait for both of us just to get bites.
Right.
Or a drop shot. I mean, depending on the lake, like the ledge lakes and Tennessee River, you can typically pick up a drop shot and catch a limit at least. Josh, we touched on that the other week. I can't remember. Do you remember Josh Teat asked about when practicing when you decide to lay off and start shaking them off? You remember what episode that was? Josh can go back and watch it and get some pretty deep insight.
Was that Andy's episode?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Josh, watch that episode that we had with Andy Montgomery the other week.
Maybe?
We got pretty in depth on that subject about.
Nobody really likes to stick it and practice except Thrift because he wants to catch as many bass as possible all the time, 24/7. So
let's see.
And I guess it works, so you might want to do that.
Why? Let's see. Jonathan Carter. Well, let's go back to another Jonathan here. Brian, what were your thoughts on fishing Lake Travis in Texas earlier this year? How did you prepare before fishing that tournament? Thanks. I mean, Brian had a phenomenal tournament down there. Caught some really big ones too. I got to watch him catch 20 pounds, 75 yards from me. He's laughing. You know what's even worse is I started where he caught 20 pounds. You don't know this, Jeff. I started where he caught 20 pounds and moved over to another little isolated deal close by. Brian pulls in about probably. I might have been off of that hole for 45 minutes or so. Brian pulls in there, and I think you threw a jig a few times out there. And then he picks up, guess what? A shaky head. And catches 20 pounds right in front of me.
24.
No, you called one on the way in and got you up.
I was thinking about that situation earlier, not that situation.
He's really rubbing it in right now.
But we're talking about becoming a professional, and I think the biggest difference that I've seen, like somebody like me that's not a professional, I can go fish a certain area, not catch anything. Then you got a professional that comes right behind you and catch 20 pounds.
What are you saying to me, Jeff?
I just want to.
That was a shot at me, man. That was terrible.
Sounds like you may need to put your handle on the other side of your spinning reel.
I said me.
That was a little cold.
Answer his question about Lake Travis.
That was a little cold.
That was hard.
All right. Lake Travis, I enjoy that. I mean, we've been there twice. Actually, my first ever tournament as a professional was on Lake Travis back in 2007, and I finished second in that one also. I lost by 1.5 pounds.
Yeah, almost won that one. That's right.
Yes, and then this time I finished second and lost by like 15 ounces. So, but anyway, I really didn't prepare for it any different than I would any other tournament. I mean, I knew the first time we went to Travis, it was down like 40 or 50 feet. So pretty much everything I fished back then was 60 to 70 feet deep. And we were there at a different time of year. It was pre-spawn the first time, and this time it was kind of, I guess it was still kind of pre-spawn spawn. But anyways, there was so much more water to fish. It was fun to get out there and approach it like it was a new lake to me, like, because it essentially was. I mean, I was fishing places that was dry ground the first time I was there. But the way I approached it was just, I covered a lot of water. I mean, Lake Travis, you don't have a whole lot of options. I mean, you've got a little bit of offshore fishing, a little bit of bank fishing. Almost spilled my sun drop. That could have been disastrous.
Make sure the label's right.
Yeah, spin around. Read the. But anyways, fishing Lake Travis, to me, it's just a fun lake because it reminds me of Lake Norman because there's so many different ways you can catch them. I feel like you could catch a big fish doing anything from throwing a jig to throwing a shaky head, crankbait, jerkbait, whatever you wanted to do. And that, to me, that's what makes it so fun. So as far as preparing for it, I really didn't. I mean, I just prepared for it like always. I rigged up 40 rods and went and sampled a little bit of everything in practice. Fished from the dam all the way up the river and everything in between, and ended up settling on throwing a shaky head behind Matt. So.
All right, guys, let's do.
By the way, I really was talking about me. He's the one who just brought it back up.
Man, you nailed me there, dude.
That was bad. That was
just
bad.
happened to be
I feel like
thinking
Matt
about it
owes you
earlier,
one.
and then it came back up.
Matt owes you one
I
for
hope
that.
everybody got a kick out of it.
Matt owes you one for that.
Matt
I'm pretty sure you did.
All right, 2 more questions, guys.
I'm not
two more
the one that
questions.
caught 20
We're
pounds.
gonna call it a night. It's been I think we're running into
Yeah, it's like 8:30.
Yeah, close to an hour and a half here. So it's
I
been
gotta
a
go
great
get
show.
Wiley ready for bed. I told
Yeah,
him.
that's right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's see. Pete Gentry's got a good question. Just in your opinion, is it more wise for a person who has fished the BFL level tournaments as a boater for a few years to continue as a boater and make the jump to the tour level, or is it better for a guy to move to the tour as a co-angler for a year or two at the tour level to get used to the travel aspect before making the jump in the front of the boat? Looking for a little guidance, Pete. I would recommend doing the coasters. I would 100% recommend.
But that fishing a co-angler on the tour, man, you can learn a lot doing that.
If you get the opportunity to do the co-angler on the tour next year, definitely do that. But if you want to still keep your feet, when I fished the tour as a co-angler back in 2005 and 2006, I was dabbling in BFLs as a boater and the coasters as a boater also, in order to see both sides of it.
Yeah.
As a co-angler, I was able to see kind of the pros' perspective on things and travel, see some new lakes, get my feet wet that way. The coaster will do the same thing for you. And even if you can't make all the tour events, you could dabble in some coaster co-angler stuff. It depends on how
I think the best scenario would be fish, since there's no points. Well, I guess they do points on the tour now, but I
for
believe,
the co-anglers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would do the coast as a boater and maybe try to jackpot a couple of the tour events as a co-angler.
And jackpot those lakes that you have never been to and you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere you can stand to learn the most and get the most benefit from being there as co-angler.
I mean, if you live in Florida, go to a smallmouth fishery up in, go to St. Clair or something. If there's a tour event, we have a tour event in St. Clair next year. You could get in that one. So, good question, Pete. Let's see. All right, one more question here. Let's go, Brian. You pick it. I've been running questions all night. You pick the last question here.
Last question, I get to pick.
If somebody gets left out, forgive us, guys. We're rolling through them as fast as we can. But please join back in next Tuesday. We're going to have a special NASCAR guest on with us. But in the meantime, Brian's going to pick one more question if he didn't answer.
Last question. This is a good one. It's from Tucker Corey. What is your favorite color of the Damiki Stinger, and have I ever threw it on a drop shot? My favorite color is watermelon candy. I mean, it's good, dirty water, clear water. I have not threw it on a drop shot. I'm kind of, I don't know, I don't drop shot a lot. That's something I need to work on. I need to work on that this winter and just get confidence in drop shot. But wacky rig, Carolina rig, shaky head, I've threw it every other way you can imagine to throw it. Weightless, Texas rigged, and I had a lot of success on it. I mean, that's one of main keys for me winning Angler of the Year this year. But I do need to work on my drop shotting skills. So I might try that some this winter at Norman. Norman's a good place to do it. I think I'll try it.
All right, and Pete said he lives in Toledo Bend, actually, the guy who was asking about fishing the co-angler stuff earlier. So, Pete, if you're on Toledo Bend still, go up north to a smallmouth fishery. Go to a tidal river.
Yeah, or a spotted bass lake. I mean, like Smith or Lanier or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Get out of your comfort zone when you do those events as a co-angler. Make you a better angler in the long run. Guys, thanks for tuning in.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Tonight. And when you can't fish, we're going to talk fish. And apparently eat popcorn and Sour Patch Kids. We're going to have a great show for you next week. Be sure to tune in. See you guys then.